Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are going to be playing monoblue painter. Now if you watch my channel you know that quite a while back I played a monoblue painter deck, and that was many iterations ago, and since then people have been tuning this deck and they've got it in a really nice spot now. Also, if you've been watching my channel you'll know that I played 8-cast recently, and my conclusion at the end of that was the Painter's Servant 8-cast deck is just better than regular 8-cast right now. So let's get into it. What is our deck trying to do? Well, we have Painter's Servant and Grindstone as our combo. Painter's Servant chooses a colour, all cards in your opponent's library are that colour. Grindstone then mills over their whole library. Pretty straightforward, but Grindstone is something that we can find with Urza Saga, so we've got a little bit of extra ways of finding that, as well as being able to draw a lot of cards with our 8-cast shell. So the 8-cast shell is essentially all these 0 mana artifacts from Lotus Petal, Mishra's Bauble, Mox Opal, so we're ramping out a load of artifacts, Seat of the Synod as well, to then cast things like Emry, which mills us a little bit and then finds us some value in our graveyard, and we can keep recurring things like Mishra's Bauble to draw cards or whatever. And then we have Thoughtcast, Thought Monitor, and a couple of Forging the Anchor, which is what I'm trying today, which is a little bit different to some of the lists, and these are to power us through our deck and just find our combo. Now we can also win with giant Urza Saga tokens. We make some pretty large ones at that. And we can also get a little bit of beats down with our Thought Monitors in the sky. Unlikely to be how we win the game with mainly a Painter combo deck, but this is a thing we do have. We've got 6 counter spells, Force of Will, which you all know and love, and Metallic Rebuke. So this is 3 mana, counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. So a mana leak, but it has Improvise, which means each artifact you tap makes it reduce its cost by 1 colorless. So this can be a 1 mana thing if we've got some artifacts kicking around that we can pitch, that we can use to it, and we can also use summoning sick artifacts to do it. So that if we play our Painter's Servant, we can then Metallic Rebuke. We've got a few additional Urza Saga targets. Saga Lantern, obviously a standard one. Shadowspear, another standard one if you've got an Urza Saga beatdown plan. Pithing Needle, I don't like playing Urza Saga decks without Pithing Needle these days, to be honest. Haywire Mite, this is a nice new inclusion, and the green mana is relatively easy for us to get with our 2 Spire of Industry, our 4 Lotus Petal, and 4 Mox Opal. And in a pinch, the Lion's Eye Diamond, which is also there for the Grindstone activation being 3 mana, which is probably worth noting. And also we can do some stuff with this and Emry to cast things like Kappa Cannoneer out of the graveyard more easily. So we've also got an Aether Spellbomb for a little bit of interaction with stuff that lands on the board. Obviously this is going to bounce creatures. We need to go to our sideboard to get things that bounce other things. But this is more or less what our deck is trying to accomplish. We've got an Otawara, and we've got these Ancient Tombs in our mana base as well. Other than that, there's not really much to talk about in the main deck. You've probably all seen 8-cast decks before or something similar, whether you've seen it on my channel, played it yourself, or whatever. Forging the Anchor is the only sort of newish card here, really. This is the look at top 5 cards. Oh, I got the Haywire Mite as well, obviously. But the look at top 5 cards of your library, reveal any number of artifacts from them, put them into your hand. So this could be drawing us 5 cards for 3 mana, which is pretty good. And it's probably going to be roughly the same mana invested in it as Thought Monitors often are, except Thought Monitor sometimes is uncastable on 3 mana, whereas Forging the Anchor always will be. Over to the sideboard, utilising our little mana base that can cast other coloured spells, we've got 2 Plague Engineers for things like Elves. Dismember, which is colourless, because we're mainly paying 1 for it, but sometimes we can pay the black for it. This is just to remove certain problematic creatures, things like Collector Reef, for example. That's why there's 3 of them in there. 2 Kappa Cannoneer, sometimes our combo is not going to be good enough, so we want the big turtle to mash people down with. A couple of S1 Canonist, again utilising the fact that our mana base is kind of multicoloured. This is really good against the Storm decks and Elf decks. We have 1 Brazen Borrower to bounce problem permanents that we can't kill with Dismember, so things like a Pithing Needle is something we can use. But we also have the Haywire Mite to blow up those things as well, but it's just another piece of interaction that we can have here. We have 3 Force of Negation for the combo decks that are going to go and try and go under us, because we're not a super fast combo deck. We can kill our opponent quite quickly. We can have turn 1s with this deck, but we're generally not like one of the really fast combo decks like Oops or whatever, so we just want more protection against that. Another Soulguy Lantern. Not really sure why this is a Soulguy Lantern and not something like a Tormod's Crypt, or just something a little bit different to differentiate, but Soulguy Lantern is the best one to find off the Saga, so we just got another one of those. And another Haywire Mite, kind of doubling up on the effect of Brazen Borrower to get rid of scary things once they make it into play. That's the deck. We're hoping to play lots of permanents, counter some spells, and mill some people out with Painter. That's about it really. So just before we jump into the league, it's time for a plug. Likes, comments, and subscribers. These are 3 things that cost you nothing, but really help me out. Especially subscribers, that's what I'm really trying to get at the moment. Once I get up to 1,000 subscribers and get monetized, I'm going to be banging on about subscribers less, so why not subscribe to me and stop me banging on about it? Alright, let's jump into a Legacy League with monoblue Painter. We're on the play for game 1. Our hand looks pretty good to me. We can do a lot of stuff with it. So I think we're going to keep this. We're going to play a turn 1 Emry, right? 1, 2, tap for the Emry. And then we can also play out a Grindstone or something like that. We do need to play out our Seat of the Synod here. Unless we go Urza, Saga, Haywire Mite, Mox Opal. No, that still doesn't do it, does it? Alright, so we're definitely casting our turn 1 Emry here. So, Seat, Mox. So this makes the Emry cost 1 mana once this enters the battlefield. So we get to mill ourselves. We're going to pop our graveyard up here. So we've got the wind sewn up pretty quick here. So next turn we can play out the Painter if we want to. And the turn after we have the win. So this is a turn 3 Goldfish. Now our opponent's going to have something to say about that. Quite exactly what that's going to be, I don't know yet. A mountain. That's certainly the Destroying Artifacts colour. Okay, so this is another pretty useful one here. Are we going to be pivoting onto an Ezra Saga plan? Potentially. So I think if we play this out, then we can play out the Painter. So we can choose here. We can name... If we name blue and our opponent is a Painter deck, then their Pyroblast is going to be live. If we name anything else, like we don't have a Force of Will here, so I think we're probably incentivized to name something less useful. So I think we go for like green here. We'll go for a green. Okay, and then we'll play out our Grindstone. So we've told our opponent we can kill them next turn. And if they kill our Painter Servant, we rebuy it with Emry. If they counter this Grindstone, we rebuy it with Emry. So let's see if this turn 3 Goldfish is enough. Now our opponent could have a Painter Servant, a Grindstone of their own, and like a Lion's Eye Diamond or something. It's certainly possible. I'm hoping that we see another card from our opponent, they don't just scoop. Because I'd like to have a bit more information for sideboarding if we do win this one. Okay, they just conceded. All right. So our opponent has not shown us anything apart from a basic mountain, which means the options of what it could be, it could be an initiative deck, but that seems very unlikely to me. I think the most likely candidate is going to be Painted, actually. That's what I'm expecting most of all. But if it is some sort of like prison-y deck, these dismembers are going to be useful for killing stuff anyway. So if we're trying to worry about Painter, the Soulguide Lantern is going to be good here. The Pithing Needle is something that we might want some use from. I'm not really sure how good the Spellbomb is. It can bounce opposing construct tokens, which is a real thing. Our Force of Wills are going to be bad if they're Painter, but they're going to be good if it's a prison deck. So that's certainly one of the things we need to think about. The Plague Engineer on Goblin is good against both Painter and the like prison-y decks. So maybe we want these. I think Force of Will is less good than Metallic Rebuke. Our Graveyard is unlikely to be as useful as it was then because of what our opponent can bring to the battlefield. So let's take out an Emry. Let's shave on a Force of Will. And then we've got 3 more things we need to try and squeeze into the old deck list here. Maybe we are just trying to take out the Force of Wills and assume our opponent is Painter. Now that seems like quite a wild assumption, for sure. Board out a couple of Thought Monitors. Let's try that. We've still got some Force of Wills. The Metallic Rebukes are good because they're not 1-for-1s. Because they're not 2-for-1s. Let's see what our opponent delivers for us. So we got some removal. We got this Force of Will we can't cast. I don't really like this hand. I think we'll need more of an engine to be getting along with. Okay, now this hand definitely does some work. We have a Force of Will we can pitch early on. We've got the ability to play out an Emry super early. We can keep this. We're probably pitching one of our lands. We do have Plague Engineer on our deck, so that leads me towards playing the Spire of Industry. But we have the Lotus Petal Emry combo, so I think we're probably binning off the Spire of Industry. Leyline of the Void. Sure. So this is a card that Painter decks sideboard. So this could be Painter still. So we have a choice of what we do here. I think we're just playing out the Seat, and just in case they are something that we need to worry about, we're going to play the Lotus Petal in case they are like some sort of Trinisphere deck or whatever. This just gives us slightly more flexibility of what we do. So we can cast Forge in the Anchor next turn if we want to, or we can play the As a Saga, we've got a few options. Now, our opponent also left up Pyroblast quite obviously there. A Chrome Mox. This is looking more like a prison deck now. Chrome Mox is not a thing you see in Painter because it's got too many artifacts to imprint into it. Another Leyline in the Void. Okay. With our opponent holding up a Pyroblast, there's no point of us making a move just yet. We can hopefully draw another land and just ride this as a Saga a bit with counter spells up. They are putting black mana, and this might just be because that's what Chrome Mox taps for. But we'll see what our opponent does here. He's going to keep passing the turn. Interesting. So we can make an Urza Saga token with our Lotus Petal if we want to. What's our opponent doing here? An Abrade targeting our Seat of the Synod. I don't really want that to happen. So I'm going to cast this. Blue, 1, and pay 1 with this. They got Simmons Spirit Guide? They do not. Okay. So probably getting a Mox Opal with our Urza Saga. A Fire Flux Squad. This has got a lot of text on it. We're going to get rid of this Emry that's not doing us any good, and we're just going to say no to this Fire Flux Squad. And now they don't have a Pyroblast up, so we can play our... Okay, no, they do have a Pyroblast up. Okay, they don't have Pyroblast in hand because you always pay 3 life there. We will float a mana here rather than making a guy. I think we get the Opal here, and then we're casting this. Alright. Whole bunch of artifacts. Sure. So this is enough mana to play a Metallic Rebuke. So I think we pass the turn. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more business there. But we've got the next thing our opponent does covered. Another Fireflux Squad. Blue, 1, 1. So I've gotten 3 mana out of this Metallic Rebuke. 2 mana out of this Lotus Petal already. And I haven't even cracked it yet. That's pretty good. Do need some action here. That's not what I would describe as action, unfortunately. Maybe we're supposed to let that Fireflux Squad resolve and then dismember it. So I think now we play this out. And let's have a look at top card of our opponent's library. Honor of the God Pharaoh. As an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card. Draw 2 cards and mass 1. Right, that's an interesting one. Okay, Spire of Industry. So one of the downsides of running Forging the Anchor is that you can't Forging the Anchor into a Thought Monitor because you've cut Forging the Anchors for them, if you know what I mean. You've cut Thought Monitors for Forging the Anchor. Whereas if you just add 1 and then 3. Alright, let's play out this Grindstone. I don't think our opponent's going to have anything that matters graveyard-wise. Although they do have that weird discard a card, amass thing. You find some prisoners. Interesting card. Do I want to let this happen? Or do I want to grind them once, forget some more information? Because we're not going to be able to do repeated grinds, I'm just going to let that go. We've got some more information to sideboard with as well for the next game. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. That's a pretty good one. Just kind of bricking out now. So, what are we doing here? Do I think mana is my opponent's problem? I don't think so. I think they're looking for business, which means I'd rather save my Dismember for something scary they have, or for the back half of Fable of the Mirror Breaker, because that can obviously get out of hand quite quickly. So they're going to go get themselves a token. This turns off our Metallic Rebukes, but we've already cast both of our Metallic Rebukes, because they're going to have loads of mana now, but we don't really care about that, to be honest. A Trinisphere. Like, we've got quite a lot of mana now. We do have a lot of cheap cards that we don't want to have to be spending that much on, but we have so little action that that's probably fine. Blue and 2 probably. Let's draw some cards. Okay, not that exciting still. We're a little bit exposed to Meltdown here. We don't need to Pithing Needle this just yet. We can wait and see if they play anything else. I'd rather just keep up the Dismember. So let's see what we have. There's still going to be a clock that they can produce. We can pay Dismember without actually having to pay costs either, which is nice. Without paying life, sorry. If they play something like a Fury this turn, then or a Fireflux Squad, then we remove the thing they play and then Pithing Needle the Reflection. Another Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Interesting. That does incentivize me to Pithing Needle the Reflection of Kiki Jiki. Does that mean I have to Dismember one of these things now? I don't think so. Maybe that's wrong. And it's just more mana efficient to just get rid of this now. So we go for black and black here. Because we are under a Trinisphere, we do need to keep an eye on how much things cost. Because our deck is kind of designed to chain together a load of spells. This isn't great for us. 1, 2, 3. Let's play this one out. So we can redraw off this if we want to. We'll still have mana to do stuff with it. So I think we will draw immediately. A Force of Will. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can't actually use this Force of Will this turn. And our Mox Opals cost 3, which is not great. It's like standard level of Mana Rock instead of broken, busted Legacy Mana Rock. We should play out the Needle on the Reflection of Kikijiki that turn. That was my mistake. It would take us 2 life to do it. So it's kind of much of a muchness. But this way they get 2 treasure tokens. Minskamboo. Yikes. Okay, this is going to kill us pretty quickly. Not sure we can actually beat this. So this turn we take 4, 8, and then we're dead next turn. How do we beat this? I guess we have to combo off next turn. So we need to draw like a Thoughtcast and hit exactly the things we need. And even then that probably doesn't do it, right? I think we're just dead here. But we'll take one more draw. I guess like forging the anchor into all the pieces we need. That's still probably not enough, is it? Blood Sun. Okay, that doesn't really matter. That's obviously bad for Urza Saga, but right, so we need to combo our opponent off right now. So I think it's forging the anchor into the right pieces is how we win this one. That's certainly not it. Okay, so now we know what our opponent's playing. We have a little bit better idea what we're supposed to be doing. So things like Force of Negation and Force of Will are actually going to be very good in this matchup. The Kappa Cannoneer is a pretty realistic win condition. It should be able to outscale a lot of the things that they're doing. The Haywire Mite is going to be very nice as well. Thought Monitor, we're probably just going to need some action here. I don't think we want these Plague Engineers. We will not need Soul Guide Lantern. Pithing Needle on Minskamboo is pretty good. Is this a game where we actually need our Lion's Eye Diamond? I don't think so. Got a lot of cards we're trying to fit in is the problem here. The Dismembers to snipe out some of their guys seem pretty important. I think I can probably cut on the Lion's Eye Diamond so we don't have to go fast. Spellbomb seems fine, but I think what we're bringing is just better. That gives us 5 slots to try and find things here, which is a lot. There's a lot to try and find. Are we trimming back on the combo? I think we can trim back on 1 Mox Opal. Still 4 cards. So we could be trimming back on a couple of Grindstones here, because they're the easier one to find, and trim back on a Painter. Can we trim back on 2 Painters, or is that too much? No, I think we'll trim back on an Emry, because they might shut down our graveyard. Alright, we'll go for it like this. We could have brought in the Borrower as well as an option. We get to draw a lot of cards pretty early on, so I think we'll keep this one. Land on the Void, sure. So this is... So I play this one out, I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 mana, and this will cost 2 less. So I can either Thoughtcast this turn, or I can Forging the Anchor this turn. I think we're going to Forge the Anchor. So we drew some cards there. I think we're incentivized to keep our Mishra's Bauble in play for the purposes of improvise on our Kappa Cannoneer. If we can play a Kappa Cannoneer, I think we can probably ride that to victory. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, just an Ancient 2 for my opponent. Alright, big Kappa Cannoneer. So this is 2, 4, 5, 6. This sees itself when it enters the battlefield. And now we have a large creature that can't be meltdown if that's something they have. So this should outscale most of the things they do. Blood Sun, sure. Mana abilities. So this doesn't really impact the board, and we're quite far ahead on board, so that's always nice. Metallic Rebuke would be nice if we had a blue source here, which we don't have. What we do have is the Painter combo sewn up. Let's play this guy. And we need blue here. They do have Pyroblast in their deck, possibly. But we can draw into a Force of Will quite soon, so I think we'll do this and try and draw into the Force of Will. See the top card of our opponent's library. Azazakan. That's not very exciting. So we're attacking them for 7 this turn. The next time we can attack them for 8 plus however many, whilst also threatening the Painter Servant Grindstone combo. Okay, so we've drawn a blue source as well, which is nice. So we can Forge Yanker, or we can just hold up Metallic Rebuke. So our opponent's turn's going to have to be pretty good here. Okay, they don't have anything. Sure. That matchup felt fine. The second game was a little bit dodgy because we didn't really know what we were sideboarding against. We basically did too well in game 1 that we had to lose game 2 pretty much. All right, let's go on to the second round. 1, 2. This gives us 1 mana. I think this is a keep. We can't quite cast an Emry on turn 1 though, which is a shame. The question is, do we want to play the Urza Saga out first? I think so, because that represents a turn 3 kill. I think we play this one out. And then we will play out our Lion's Eye Diamond, because this is going to give our opponent a lot to think about and might put us on the mono-black Storm deck instead. There's Blue Delta. There's a Volcanic Island. There is a Dragon's Rage Channeler. I don't think this is where we try and pick a fight here, although we can counterspell this without worrying about days. Is that worth the battle here? Because this is going to let them see a lot more cards. I don't think this is worth the battle. Then we just have to let that slide. Okay. So we have this. We can play out our Grindstone, which will give us enough artifacts to cast this guy for 1 mana, which is a very good lightning bolt target. Let's pop our graveyard up here since it's one of our resource zones. And we'll pass a turn. So no wasteland, which is good for us. We have Force of Will protecting our combo, although we can't use the Third Path Iconoclast. This is a different sort of deck to what I was expecting. And we've also got the Underground Sea here. This is like a Grixis, lots of lands deck. So what do we want here? If we go and get ourselves a Mox Opal, how much mana does that give us? 1, 2... is that enough? Get Mox Opal here. And then blue, so we can pitch this Grindstone to the Force of Will. We don't actually want to go off now because the Lion's Eye Diamonds means that we lose our protection. This way we can protect our creature around a daze, but also we can just Emry it away. Sure. So we're kind of wanting our opponent to try and lightning bolt our Painted Servant or something so we can get this Force of Will out. Now there will come a time where we just have to go for it and use the Lion's Eye Diamond, but I'm hoping that isn't just yet. If we can find another mana source, it means we can grind them without having to worry about our Lion's Eye Diamond. Scalding Tarn, sure. Can't really attack with their creatures right now. A Metallic Rebuke. Again, that's another one that we can't actually do the things we want with. Kind of a weird situation we found ourselves in, to be honest. I think we have to pass here again. We really need another mana source that turn. There's no point in having all this protection if we don't cast it. And we're not under enough pressure that we need to go for it immediately. Ponder. Sure, this is going to make some more guys. It's also annoying that our Emry only hit lands. I would have preferred something useful. Scalding Tarn being cracked. Expressive Iteration. So this time we're going to cast a Metallic Rebuke on it. We'll let them get their Dragon's Rage Channeler trigger first. So we need blue from this. And then we tap this for 1. And we tap this for 1. You can still sacrifice this. Because it's not a tap to sack ability. We just deny our opponents some more resources. Very much like to draw a mana source here. Mystic Sanctuary. What are they putting on top? Probably the Expressive Iteration. That's usually the one, isn't it? They can attack us for 3 now. They're sending in the 2-1. I think we just take the 2 here. We could try and make a trade, but I don't think it's worth it. We just want to find a mana source, and then we can actually try and grind our opponent. Alright, there's a mana source. Minor Mister. Oh, the new cards are online, are they? That's news to me today. Alright, sure. Counter, target. Okay, well this doesn't actually matter to me because I'm just going to get it back with the Emry. So that's fine. Interesting. Let's mill them now while they're tapped out. This way we also get the Expressive Iteration off their deck. If this somehow doesn't work, we still have the Expressive Iteration. Cool. Alright. Didn't realise new stuff was in there. Plague Engineer or Monk is going to be great here. Truth be told. Now they're going to be playing things like... oh, actually, the Esphon Canalist is probably quite nice here too. So they're going to be playing things like Meltdown, I would imagine. Although Meltdown is a bit tricky because they make artifact guys. But I imagine the Meltdown is just going to be better for them than it is for us. So Cap Cannoneers are a nice one we have here. Now, they might be the infinite combo build, so we might need to have Force of Wills, but we didn't see any Baubles or anything. They might not have that. Pithing Needle can name Wasteland, but I don't think it's worth it as a tutor target. The Haywire Mite as a one-of in case our opponent is playing the combo is probably worth it. The Lion's Eye Diamond, I'm not really a fan of in this sort of matchup where our opponent's got a load of permission, so we can get rid of that one. I think we need to keep some of these things. Our graveyard is probably going to be less of a useful resource than it was that game. Well, it wasn't a particularly useful resource, but we did do something with it. So maybe we can trim an Emry. The Spellbomb's probably not going to be great here either. I think we are probably looking at either trimming an Emry or a Painted Servant here. We'll trim an Emry. The other option here is also bring in the Cannoneers, which can really tussle with some of the things that our opponent is doing. Let's trim on a Mox for a Cannoneer. I quite like trimming on Moxes against Meltdown decks. Maybe that's wrong, but I do like to do that. And maybe we can trim one Painted Servant for a Cannoneer, because this dodges Meltdown quite effectively. Let's give that a go. We could board in the other Soul Guide Lantern if they're a Murktide deck, but I'm not sure they will be a Murktide deck is the thing. So I'll keep one in until we get more information. What does our opening hand do? It doesn't really do very well versus Wasteland. It doesn't really do very well versus Meltdown. Although if we can draw another mana source, then we can start doing some things. So I think we can keep this one. So our opponent is in the combo deck. We don't need immediate answers to things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can cast a Thoughtcast this turn if we want to. I think I'm going to play out a Grindstone and a Mishra's Bauble here. And then next turn, we will do some card drawing shenanigans. I don't want to play out my Petal straight away in case they just go for a quick Meltdown this turn. Okay, nothing from our opponent there. Cap Cannoneer is quite a nice one there. So we have 4 artifacts in play, so our Thoughtcast just costs blue. Not bad. It's going to be like Dark Ritual into... Okay, they're just doing a Pyroblast. Sure. So this one costs 3 mana. So next turn we can throw that one off if we need to. If we draw a Ancient Tomb, we can play the Cannoneer, although it will be into a Daze. We haven't seen Dazes yet, but we have to assume they're in our deck, given the configuration of the things we have seen. The question is, do I want to open ourselves up to a Pyroblast this turn? I think we're going to go for Forging the Anchor instead. Like the Cannoneer is the thing we want to play after our opponent's messed with all of our spells. Alright, Snapcaster. Was not expecting that from their deck. Sure. Back over to us. So we're just trying to run our opponents out of things and we can play the big Haymaker of Kappa Cannoneer. And then back it up with some more card draw. By Force. Not great for your hero over here. Which our opponent's working with. They've got Force of Will on top of the library. I think we're losing this one. Sadly. We need artifacts in play to get our engine running, so here comes the Grindstone. We've not got the most amount of turns. This is a 7-turn clock, but they're going to be able to follow up with something. Alright. We've got some mana. We've got 5 mana effectively for all of our affinity and improvise stuff. Expressive Iteration. This is probably the nail in the coffin right now. Okay, our opponent doesn't look like they're the combo sort of build, so I'm going to board out my forces because I don't really want to trade it for a Pyroblast. Milling our opponent pretty bad in the face of Snapcaster Mage. Spire of Industry. What do we want to do here? We can play an Emry. 7. So this is 2, 4, 5, 6 mana. So we could play out Kappa Cannoneer. If that resolves, it's pretty good. If it doesn't resolve, we'll probably toast anyway. So I think we just have to go for it. Does it resolve? It does resolve. Okay. Now they could have something like a Sudden Edict because they are in black. We haven't really seen that sort of thing yet. And we certainly haven't seen any white in any of these games. So it seems very unlikely that they're on... Okay, have they got Snapcaster or another Bolt? Sure, they got another Bolt. Okay, so now we know what our opponent's doing a little bit more. We can board out these horrible 2-for-1s. Keep in maximum copies of our combo there. The Graveyard Hate is going to be good here. I would quite like to have some more utility there. And probably just keep in another... If they got by force rather than the... what's it called? The Meltdown, I think we'll be better off with these Mox Opals. So we're just going to go and try and draw a bunch of cards. Do we need Haywire Mite? We haven't seen anything like a Null Rod, but that's certainly something that they could have in their deck. Now, Haywire Mite doesn't impact Null Rod. So there is that consideration. Maybe we should be replacing the Haywire Mite for a Brazen Borrower. Haywire Mite can give us life. We haven't really seen anything. I think the Borrower is just going to be better here. Right, let's submit like this and try and draw loads of cards and outvalue our opponent. We got no permanent mana sources. We can't keep this hand. We don't have any mana acceleration here. We don't have any counter magic here, so we could come a little unstuck, but we'll see. If we draw our lines like that, we might be able to kill our opponent on turn 2 though, which is always something I don't mind trying to do. We'll leave the Mox Opal in hand for now. Volcanic Island. Into Ponder. Sure. So no Pyroblast up, so this is the turn we want to try and resolve a blue spell. So play this out. Play this out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this should cost 1 mana. Let's draw some cards. Emry, Lurker of the Loch. It's pretty nice. I kind of want to deploy this Canonist, but I could also just deploy the thing that wins us the game next turn if it sticks. I think we play out this Bauble. See the top card of our opponent's library. Snapcaster Mage. I think we just play out the Painted Servant here. Force of Will, pitching Murktide Regent. They are a Murktide Regent deck. Okay. So now we have the... we have a Soul Guide Lantern to keep Murktides in check and Snapcast that we know about. We also have the Emry, which can buy back our Painted Servant. So this turn we're probably looking at Emry, Canonist type action here. So let's start with the Emry, I think. Play out as a Saga. Play this around a daze. Okay, that looked like an F6 to me. Just get rid of one of their ponders. So if we have a mana source next turn, we can win the game, provided our opponent doesn't mess with us. Baleful Strix. Don't care about that one. Snuff Out. Interesting. So that gives us some relatively important information in terms of what colour to name with our guy. Right, so we'll play out our Bauble. Do we crack it this turn? We could draw a Metallic Rebuke, so I think it's worth cracking it now. It makes our construct one smaller. Okay, a Lightning Bolt. Good to know. We don't really care about the Lightning Bolt too much, I don't think. So we're not going to mill them. A Painted Servant. That's a good draw. So we're hopefully going to expend our opponent's resources on our Urza Saga and then get them with a Painter. Expressive Iteration. Good card. A Polluted Delta. This guy is probably not attacking. It's probably on blocks. Yeah. Let's make a Saga. What's our opponent doing here? Is it Stifle? Or are they just fetching around the Pithing Needle on my turn? I think we try and expend our opponent's resources more than anything here. If we get the Shadowspear, it's going to be pretty powerful here. We can follow up with another Saga. Put this to our construct, which can't be Pyroblasted, can't be Lightning Bolted. Okay, they're going to Lightning Bolt our Canonist. We will attack like this because it means our next one, the other one is lethal next turn. So we trample through with 8. Get a big buffer of life total as well. Looks like we might have them coming and going with combo and lethal damage. Our opponent has to remove our construct token this turn. Or deploy an enormous blocker. Or I should be Shadowspearing here. Not Shadowspearing, Soul Guide Lanterning. Because they can Murktide here. That's a mistake. Because Murktide can be a big enough body to tussle with this. I passed priority too quickly there. Hopefully our opponent gives us another window. Maybe they'll cast a cantrip or something first. They're paying cost. This looks like the Murktide. So I'll misplay with this Soul Guide Lantern by force. Interesting. Sure. Play this out. Just get rid of their graveyard because we know they have Murktide Regents in their deck and we don't want them to be able to play that. So we could play out the Painted Servant here, or we could just play out the Urza Saga. Our opponent hasn't shown us any wastelands or anything either, so I think this Urza Saga is going to be pretty decent as a way of trying to win the game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's going to be very lethal. Now I won't be able to trample with it, so if they make some of the little owls, then that's going to be annoying. Third path, Iconoclast, sure. So they can make chump blockers with this. Doesn't look like that's what they're doing though. What are we getting here? Do we like a redraw? Would we like some more mana? I think I'd like a Bauble here. So this has to get a chump block. Probably the Dragon's Rage Channeler. A Lightning Bolt. Targeting us. Sure. We've got a lot of life to work with, so that's not a problem. Red Elemental Blast into their graveyard, sure. Let's see the top card of our opponent's library. A Pyroblast. Okay. It's a pretty dead draw. I'm going to drop this guy now. And I'm going to name Black for Snuff Out. So our opponent has got one card in hand and this dead Pyroblast in their hand. So let's hope I've done enough. We have 2 lethal threats and a combo. Snapcaster Mage. So this can get the Lightning Bolt back. Sure. So they can Lightning Bolt our Painted Servant and make some more chump blockers. Make another chump blocker. But we've got 2 lethal threats coming in now. Slightly slipping away from us, to be honest. But if we'd have gone and got a Soul Guide Lantern off of the thing instead of a Bauble, we could have played around them having Snapcaster Mage. 2, 4, 5, 6. So this isn't lethal if we play this artifact out. So they've got to lose 2 creatures a turn cycle. Now they can Pyroblast targeting nothing. We have a choice of whether or not we keep this in hand to trick our opponent or we play it out. I think we want to play it out at this point. Reason being, we can chain multiple spells together if we have lots of mana. Things like Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor and Forging the Anchor. We don't want to manually grind our opponent. We could manually grind ourselves in case we hit an Emry. But again, I don't think that's worth doing either. If we can get the third path Iconoclast off the board, then I think we'll be good. Yeah, here's the Pyroblast to scry. So they put a third path Iconoclast into their graveyard off of the Surveil trigger. Just a Murktide. 1, 2, 3. It is a Murktide. So this is a 6/6. So they can trade away one of my construct tokens. Unless we can draw some really good spells. Ooh, this is a pretty good spell. This forces them to lose one of their good creatures. And they can't replay the Murktide. And we can deploy the Brazen Borrower. It's not lethal though. But it is still another threat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, we managed to get the match there. So yeah, that ended up being like a weird, long, grindy one there. But I think I quite enjoyed that one. There was a lot of ins and outs, and I could probably go back and look over how I played that and change things. Getting the Soul Guide Lantern when I got the Mishra's Bauble was wrong. I wanted the information from what our opponent had on top of their library. But we could have played around a Snapcaster and still been able to draw a card if we needed to. So I think it was probably the right choice to get the Lantern there. So a little bit of a learning experience there, but we are done with that one. So we are 2-0. Let's go to round 3. We are on the play for this round. What does our hand do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can cast a Thought... Oh, it's the Thought Monitor, isn't it? So we can cast this on turn 3. I'm not a big fan of this one, truth be told. Like if we play... I guess we can play Painter's Servant on 1 and then pitch our Ancient Tomb to a Force of Will. That's probably okay. Let's play our Painter's Servant on turn 1. Name blue. This gives us an Ancient Tomb that we can pitch if we want to. We'll play the Bauble out now just in case something really weird happens that maybe shuts off our artifacts somehow. At least we can get a draw out of this one. But we would like to use it for mana because we're trying to get up to Thought Monitor. This is showing why Thought Monitor is a little bit iffy sometimes in this deck because it's quite expensive to cast. Unmask. Targeting me. Unmask targeting me. We can either give them the pretense that we've got something, which I think we have to do because otherwise we're just going to lose the game here. So we'll do that and show our opponent that we have something. Our opponent not doing anything there. That's weird. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't want to give up the illusion that we have Force of Will in hand. Although, if we play this out, we can represent a blue card because this can redraw into any card, which is enough to give us a Force of Will. Now, our opponent might not know that. They might not realise that we can draw any card because of thing. But we're trying to represent Force of Will. That's why we Force of Willed the first thing that our opponent did. So our opponent isn't playing anything. I'm thinking they might be the mono black Oops deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's draw some cards. Metallic Rebukes are pretty nice. Shame we don't have any blue mana going though. I think we're just going to... Okay, so there's an Animate Dead on top of our opponent's library. I would like to try and draw a Force of Will, so I'm going to pop both of these. We'll leave this in play though, in case something gets in play that we want to deal with. Thoughtcast and a Painter's Servant. Sure. Okay, our opponent is doing some weird stuff over there. Thoughtcast. So this should cost 1, right? Yep. This puts down our Metallic Rebuke shields. Is the only issue. I think we 2 cards is too good to pass up on. Yikes, we didn't actually find the thing we were looking for. I think we will draw a card with this one. Force of Will. Okay, that's what we wanted to see. Plenty of things to pitch to it. Then next turn we can untap with Metallic Rebuke and Force of Will. Dark Ritual. I'm going to say no to this one. Oh, sure. Let's just win now. Cool. Oh, they didn't let us see their deck, but they look like a pretty standard Reanimator fare. Which means we would like some Force of Negations and this Soul Guide Lantern. This Brazen Borrower is not the worst. These S1 Canonists are also not the worst, especially if we can drop it on turn 1. Really mess with our opponent. Now, what we do have to worry about is Serenity. So I'm going to board in a Haywire Mite. So we have another answer to Serenity, because not only does Serenity like hit some of our potential hate pieces, it completely collapses our engine. So this is actually a matchup where the Lion's Eye Diamond is good because it gives us an ability to go faster. So the Thought Monitors probably go here, and I don't think we can actually afford to board out any more blue cards. Shadowspear is not going to be necessary in this matchup. We're going to need our things that go fast, so we're going to need all these baubles and things because we need our 0 drops. 8, 8, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, we can't cut another blue card really. We probably cut 1 Grindstone because that's the easiest one for us to find. We just need to win the game. to stop our opponent winning the game. Like, the Canonist does slow our opponent down. So we could board in the Canonists over like a couple of Painters, or over like a Painter and a Grindstone, as a way of slowing our opponent down. It's a case of, do we need to try and go fast or not? Like, it'd be nice to have the option to like just bop them on turn 1. I think on the play I'm more interested in Canonist, but on the draw I think I would rather go with this. Haywire Mite also answers Animate Dead, which is relatively important. So we have a piece of interaction here, and we can follow that up by playing out our Mox Opal so it's live. The question though is, where do we go from there? I don't think we go anywhere. Although we could draw a Painted Servant, and this is one of those hands that actually gets us there on turn 1, so I think we keep this one. I suspect our opponent wins this game, and then we go to game 3. There is a Grief. We cannot interact with Grief because it is a creature. So this is why I don't like counter spells and stuff as a solution to Reanimator, generally speaking, because it's pretty elementary for them to just to punch a hole in your hand and then do the thing they're doing. So let's say they take... Okay, so take Thoughtcast, interesting. Lotus Petal, sure. So they know that we can't interact because of this force negation. Entomb. So they get the Grizzlebrand, and then they draw 14 cards this turn, probably. Shallow Grave. Okay, so this is a different deck. This is more like Tin Fins here. Interesting. So they're probably going to drop something that allows them to... No, they're just going to their end step. Right, so they draw 7 cards here, and then they probably try and keep going, perhaps, and put something else into play. Or they can try and combo us off with Storm, if they're Tin Fins. A Grief. So we're going to lose a big chunk of our hand here. I suspect we're not winning this one. I imagine the Grindstone goes here, or possibly the LED, because this is the biggest jump in mana. Yeah, it's the Grindstone. So our combo has been collapsed on us. Let's see what they can do with these 20 cards in their hand. Unmask. Feels very unlikely that we win this one. As soon as they show us what their like next way of winning the game is, then we can pack it up. Okay, so a whole bunch of stuff there. I think we can probably scoop this one up. Like, what are we realistically doing here? I guess we can play out all of our things, and maybe if our opponent doesn't actually kill us, we might be able to just get lucky and draw the Painter at the right time. We can stop and Animate Dead, because we have 3 artifacts, we can sacrifice this. But if we can draw a Painted Servant next turn and then untap, then we can win the game. It's possible. Dark Ritual. Feed the Swarm we've seen there. Shallow Grave. So this is going to get Arcane of Cruelty. So this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And our opponent gets to draw some more stuff. We'll sacrifice this, gain 2 life. And discard a card. So again, we're not actually dead yet. Entomb. Okay. They put a Cabal Therapy in their graveyard. Interesting. They're going to Cabal Therapy themselves to get something out of their hand. Yes, they are. No, they're just Cabal Therapying us. Interesting. Okay, they have a Reanimate, sure. That'll kill us. Alrighty then. Do we have any changes that I would like to make? The Canonist seems much better if they are on the... what's it called? Deck. Tin Fins style. So we're probably looking at shaving an Emry, because that's kind of a slow thing. And maybe a Painter. Let's give this a go. We have turn 1 Graveyard Hate. I will keep this hand. So this is 1, 2. We have to play out our Soul Red Lantern rather than our Emry here. Can't do both, so we'll play it off of this. Next time we can play out an Emry. An Unmask targeting us. Sure. Take one of our Emrys. What do they exile for this? The Thoughtseize. Reanimate target our Emry. Sure, power to you, I guess. Not a particularly strong one. Didn't hit too much of excitement. I think we will bauble our opponent in a turn. We do need to get into our deck a little bit more. Okay, so they got a petal on top. So they can recur petals, so I don't really care about that. Another Emry, you say? Put this one out. Blue. Make our Emry of our own. Oh, look at those force negations I really wanted. We will ping our opponent with this, because I would like to draw a card in their turn in case we draw a Force of Will. They can get back a Ratchet Bomb, which is an interesting one, because that is a little awkward for us. Okay, so we've drawn a petal here. Okay, the Ratchet Bomb only hits the lion's eye diamond, so it's not the end of the world. Alright, so they've got a petal playing here. Targeting this petal. Sure. A Thoughtcast. 1, 2, 3. So if we play an artifact from our graveyard, this will cost 1 mana. Let's get Mishra's Bauble back. Let's Thoughtcast. Canonist is pretty good here. Take a little bit of pain for it. And then I think we pass the turn. Actually, we'd like to Bauble our opponent first. A swamp. Okay. A Pithing Needle. So this can name Grizzlebrand, which is important. I don't really want to name Emry. They're targeting their Ratchet Bomb. This is definitely one where I can think about exiling their graveyard. I think we have to do this now. They get 1 non-artifact spell, so they can't cast Entomb and a Reanimate spell this turn, and then we can replay the replay the Soaring Lantern next turn. Play this out. We have to get rid of a card. We'll get rid of our also negation, I guess. And we'll play out this Pithing Needle. Do we need to play out our Grindstone? I guess they have a lot of hand disruption. Let's get the bits in. Force of Negation. This is a good card for us to have. I think we go to attacks with our 2-2. I'd like a Mishra's Bauble, please. So what are you working with over there? A Reanimate. Okay. I feel we're in an okay spot now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can hardcast Force of Will. We can hardcast Force of Negation. We're going to get in for 1 damage. They're not. We can mill ourselves with the Grindstone as well if we want to. Let's draw some cards. Okay. Lotus Petal. So we could be staggering these differently so that we get the... so that we don't have a card in hand, but we already have things that they would take with discard anyway. So I'd rather just have more options in terms of what we could pitch and how we play out our next turn. Forging the Anchor is probably going to be a good one here. A Lotus Petal. I don't want to mill myself. I don't know if I want to pay the life necessarily because of the Ancient Tombs. We've got a lot going on here anyway, so... There's a Saga is a pretty good one. I think we're probably forging the Anchor here though. Problem with this is it does stop us from being able to cast a Force of Will this turn. Okay. I'll play an Urza Saga. Go to attacks. Mishra's Bauble. Play this Mishra's Bauble. Have a look at the top card of the library. A Grizzlebrand. Okay. And I will play out this Soaring Lantern. And I will take out my Emry just so they have less things that they can reanimate if they wanted to. Because that will give them cards in their graveyard. This way their graveyard is just completely offline. So now we've got our counter spells up. Got Haywire Mite, so we've got the Serenity covered. I think we're in an okay spot. We'll target ourselves now, just in case we can put this one away. There's a painted search. Okay, and we're in the match. So maybe we could have done that earlier, but I was a little bit cautious. I wanted to sort of make sure that we were just pulling ahead really and not losing the game, but maybe I should have been trying to find lines to win the game sooner in case our opponent had like a flurry of things. But yeah, overall pretty happy with that one. We are 3-0. Let's go into the 4th round. We're on the play for round 4. This is the opening hand I've been given. This plays a pretty good as a Saga game with Force of Will backup. I'll take that. Whether or not we're supposed to cast a Pithing Needle on Wasteland on turn 1, I'm not sure. Considering our whole house of cards gets collapsed if I do get Wasteland, I think we're just going to go for the Wasteland on the Pithing Needle. This also pumps our Sagas, and it's probably the only time we're going to get to play it. Now, we could definitely get punished for this, but considering our hand, we kind of need to make sure we don't get Wastelanded. Underground Sea. So this is looking like Doomsday or some sort of unfair deck, usually. This is the unfair land. We will play out this, and we'll pass a turn. This makes our constructs bigger. Bigger is better. Okay. So we could be playing into a bit of a dress down or something here. But I think it's worth doing this play, though. The upside of having these constructs in play is just so huge. This is the last chance to get to lightning bolt it. Do I care enough about that? No. So we can get a Soaring Lantern here and mess with our opponent's graveyard. Or we can get a blue source that we kind of need. I think we just need the blue source. Let's try and draw some cards. We could have played the land first to pay around a daze. But I also want to be able to... Ooh, this is quite spicy. So... we can play out. I also wanted the chance of drawing in a better card. Let's have this Chrome Mox in play. Let's cast this. One thing you can do with LEDs, you can put something like a Thought Monitor on the stack, then crack your LED to cast what comes off of it. Cling to Dust. Getting rid of our Thoughtcast. Okay. Weird timing. I guess they're trying to... That's the one that lets them draw a card, right? If it was a creature card, otherwise you draw a card. Yes, they're trying to find a counter spell for this. Do I want to counter the Emry? Considering we've already got a reload in hand, I think that's fine. Let's see what our opponent's working with over there. Oh, I just missed a point of damage by doing that, didn't I? That was stupid. Right, because we don't really want to... Actually, no, we didn't miss a point of damage. We're not attacking that turn. We didn't really want to use the Thought Monitor for our Force of Will. And now we don't have to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can cast the Thought Monitor for just a blue mana next turn. For pretty low mana next turn. I think I'm going to Force of Will this. Because this also gets rid of the back half of Petty Theft as well. Forging the Anchor. That's a pretty tempting one, isn't it? Let's do this one. How much value can I get? A lot, as it turns out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So how much does this cost right now? Just the blue. Let's have some more cards, please. This deck feels kind of gross. We're going to play out just one Grindstone, not both of them. We could play out the second one if we wanted to. I think I want to keep it the surprise in hand, just in case our opponent has something. Because we have lethal next turn through regular damage anyway. Let's talk out our opponent's library. After we've dealt them damage, is an Uro. That doesn't do anything here. If we had a Force of Will or a blue card, I'd be more inclined to crack this Bauble. Okay, so they're getting rid of the... Right there. A Fury. Sure. Okay, Force of Will. We're going to draw a blue card. Are we running hot today? We're not running that hot. But this does give us Force of Will back up next turn. We know our opponent's got 1 Uro in hand. And a Fury in hand. Assassin's Trophy on this guy. Sure, don't mind if I do. Let's have an island. More mana helps. So we know our opponent's hand now. We've got it all coming and all going. You're going to have a bad time, opponent. Right, we got the concession there. Yeah, it felt wild in this matchup. We just had so much stuff going on. Right, so our opponent's on like 4-color stuff. 4-color stuff. Probably going to struggle a bit versus Kappa Cannoneer, I would imagine. The Saga Lantern, we've already seen the Euros. That's going to be pretty good. I'm expecting our opponent might be on like a sort of scammy, stifly type deck because we saw the Furies and we saw the Euro. But that could be wild speculation. Do want Plague Engineer for Hamster. Do want Aether Spellbomb Cannon to slow them down. They're not. They don't look like they're a Dragon's Race Channeler, so I don't think the Cannon is where we want to be. I think we just want to have these more robust threats coming in. Pyroblast is something we're going to have to watch out for, which means we probably aren't interested in these Force of Wills for this matchup. We just want to power through with loads and loads of good cards. Though we do get one more card back in, so probably just a Brazen Borrower as an option there. We can always reappraise the situation later. I like to have the Haywire Mite as an option. Pithing Needle for Minsk and Boo, which I suspect is in our opponent's deck. Yeah, let's just draw loads of cards and kill our opponent that way. What does this hand do? It's deceptive. It looks like it's good, but it really isn't because we don't really have any blue mana. I think we have to do better than that. Okay, this is a turn 1 Emry. I think we can keep this one. If we have to put one of these cards back, it's probably the Bauble. Sure, our opponent starts off with a Volcanic Island. Sure. What are we going to draw? A Lotus Petal. Sure. We can play this one out. Play out our Bauble. Play out our Opal. Play out our Petal. We can play out our Emry. This will probably get a counter spell if they have one. Pyroblast. And then we can play this out. And we don't have a second blue for this. We're going to keep our Bauble because this counts for mana in terms of both our Mox Opal and itself for the affinity cost. We cast a lot of spells on that turn. We've got Murktide covered. We've got Uro covered. So back over to us. And Urza's Saga. So this one costs 2 mana now. I guess we play out our Saga first. Blue and a 1. We don't have to Minsk and Boo this turn. It makes our... It gives us... If we play this Pithing Needle this turn, it gives us the ability to draw a card with our Mishra's Bauble this turn. Drown in the Loch. Okay. Our opponent's on some unusual stuff. That's pretty cool to see. We're certainly going to give them plenty of things in our Loch, I guess. Is that what you call it? Okay, so we've got a Grindstone. We just need a Painter. We've got Forging the Anchor to find us a whole bunch of cards next turn if we want to, or we can just play the Urza Saga game and force our opponent to win the way, try and beat that. So this looks like an Uro turn, I would guess. A Leovold, sure. So this stops us drawing multiple cards a turn. Now Anchor does not draw cards, which is important to note. Unfortunately, we don't get to do both unless we draw into a Petal. Because they don't have Pyroblast down now, I'd quite like to use this one. Alright, let's get these ones into play. So this one lets us draw a card on our opponent's turn. Let's see what's on top of their library. Oh, sure, they get to draw a card, don't they? Mutually assured destruction there. Force of will. Understood. Let's play out a Grindstone. So we should have just Saga'd then, but I wanted to get around the Grindstone, not the Grindstone, we'll keep this mana up actually. I wanted to get around the Pyroblast that our opponent most likely has in their deck. So I thought Forging the Anchor then would be the best time to resolve it. It costs us an Urza Saga token, but I think the card advantage we accrue from it would have been worth it. The fact we just drew like a million Grindstones is a little bit awkward, but such is life. Thoughtcast looking pretty bad in the face of Leovold. We can bounce it, which isn't ideal. They're playing the Boseiju rather than using it to kill our thing. Pernicious Deed, you say? Pernicious Deed. That's a spicy one. We can't Metallic Rebuke. Okay. This is going to clean up like our entire board. Understood. Draw a card. We can't draw a card actually because of the Leovold. We should have just exiled their Pernicious Deed. Alright, so we've probably lost this game now. They've stopped us drawing cards and they've blown up all of our permanents. Not a great place for us to be in. So we'll play out an Aether Spellbomb. We'll play out a Grindstone. We can bounce their Leovold end of turn if we need to. Or we could play something like a Haywire Mite. Let's see. At least I know there's a better thing to name with Pithing Needle now. So we can take this 3. A Lotus Petal. Sure. 1, 2, 3. Play this guy out. So if we bounce this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can put Thoughtcast on the stack, and then we can hold control and bounce their guy. That's probably the best way of doing it. Now this can go wrong in a multitude of ways. Drown in the Loch. Sure. So you get a card off of that. We'll play this out so we have more artifacts for next time. Alrighty then. A Dack-Faden. That's pretty bad. That does this whole thing where it gains control of artifacts. Gaining control of our Haywire Mite, which they can use to blow up a Grindstone, and then next turn they can try and steal our Grindstones. Yeah, not a great spot to be in for us. I think we can probably scoop this one up. I think we'll do that. Alright. So, we've seen some must counter spells in the form of Pernicious Deed and its ilk. So maybe we need to have these Force of Negations in or these Force of Wills in. Force of Negation is something that we can actually cast sometimes. Not convinced that Aether Spellbomb is where we want to be. That gives us 2 Force of Negations. Shadowspear, Pithing Needle, we need to keep these in. Maybe we can cut a Mox. I like to do that sometimes. Maybe we can trim on a Grindstone or 2. And power out another Force of Will. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is 5 Force of Will effects enough? Is the Brazen Borrower going to be good here? It can attack through Planeswalkers. It doesn't die to Artifact Hate. Or do we just want another Force of Will? We draw so many cards. Our Force of Wills are pretty good. I think this is the spot we're going to submit in. So this is a turn 1 Emry with Metallic. No, we didn't get Metallic Rebuke as well, did we? This is a good opening hand. Our opponent's mulligan to 6 cards. 5 cards. Okay, this is good for us. Go on, keep going. Unless you got some horrible Haymaker that I don't know about. Get this one out. This one out. This one out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I could cast a Thoughtcast this turn, but I think just to get the Emry into play so it can start tapping as early as next turn is good. Force of Will. Okay, so they've gone pretty low effectively with their mulligan now. So mulligan to 5, and they used Force of Will on their turn 1. An Emry, sure. First one was good. Let's see if this one is good too. Okay. 1, 2, 3. So this costs 2 mana. Or we can hold up Metallic Rebuke. Honestly, I think I want to hold up the Metallic Rebuke right now. When our opponent's got Pyroblast, which is quite an easy answer to what we're doing. Our opponent doesn't have many cards, so if we can get rid of the scary thing that they do, then I think we're in a good spot. Assassin's Trophy. I think this is worth Metallic Rebuking. The card advantage we can generate now is phenomenal, so... Thought Monitor. That's a thing for slightly later, isn't it? So... This costs 2 mana, doesn't it? 1, 2... Is that right? Yep, 2 mana. So we'll play this one first. Okay, so we have our combo in hand here. I think we... Mishra's Bauble our opponent. Tropical Island. Sure. And we'll get back a Mishra's Bauble. And we can either cast this now. We're just looking for mana, really. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4. Next turn. I'm just working out if we Mishra's Bauble now or not. I think we hold on to it for the purposes of Thoughtcast. Lion's Eye Diamond. Okay, we have the win next turn if our opponent doesn't have anything here. Assassin's Trophy. Okay, so next turn they have something. We can play this Saga out. Painter's Servant. We're going to name black for the purposes of snuff out here. Sure. There we go. So we got the match there. Our opponent mulliganed a bit to help us out, but we are cruising quite nicely. So we're 4-0 going into the trophy match, I think. So let's see if we can keep it going with this deck that feels real good. We're on the play again, which we seem to be a lot. We have turn 1 Emry. So let's do that. We need turn 1 Emry and Soulguide Lantern as well. So Seat of the Synod, Mox Opal. If we play this one, then it turns on our Emry. It turns on our Mox Opal for Emry. Force of Will, pitching Force of Will. We get it. You have Force of Will in your deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can cast a Thoughtcast next turn. Volcanic Island. This looks like Delver would be my guess. Sunny looking Delvery. So our Soulguide Lantern here is going to be nice. Otawara. Play this one out. How much is this one? This is 4 mana, so that's too expensive right now. This one should be 2 mana as well. Let's try and draw some cards. We can pay for a Daze. A Grindstone. We can play this Grindstone into a Daze. Or we can wait a turn. I think we wait a turn. This deck is real good. This painter deck. Brainstorm. So they're going to get to see 4 cards this turn, potentially. Okay, Scalding Tarn goes away. At some point, we might have to pop our Soulguide Lantern to stop our opponent from being able to Murktide. But that's not this turn. We can also do the trick where their Channeler is Delirious, it attacks, we remove their graveyard, we block it. If we can draw a Lion's Eye Diamond, we might be able to win the game next turn. Now, I'm not sure if I want to do that necessarily. I think I'd rather try and lean into this Thought Monitor and get some more cards into our deck. Scalding Tarn. Cracking the Scalding Tarn. So their Brainstorm was a perfect Brainstorm. Plateau. Okay, that's unexpected. Dragon's Rage Channeler. So we take a little poke for 1. Importantly, this doesn't make blue mana, which is nice. It does give them 2 mountains if they have something really weird like Pulverize. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're 1 mana off being able to do our thing, and this costs 3 mana right now. Oh, I think we try and run this one out there. This is a good spell. We're playing around Daze. Draw a whole bunch of cards here. Haywire Mite is pretty nice. We'll play out our Grindstone. Our opponent's got 3 cards in hand. I don't think it's worth playing out the Haywire Mite just yet. Who knows what stuff is going to be in our opponent's deck. Delver's Secrets. The Plateau probably means Swords of Plowshares. Okay. A Wasteland is not nothing, that's for sure. 2 cards in our opponent's hand. They're representing a removal spell right now. It's Shadowspear. I'm kind of tempted to just play out a Painter and then play out a Painter. We don't have any Force of Will type cards in hand right now. I don't want them to randomly get a black source and snuff us out. So I'm going to name black. Try another one. We'll also name black. So they have to kill both of our guys this turn, or they lose the game. One of them is getting plowed. Sure. Okay, so they're a what do you call it deck? Initiative deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can plow that, and they got 1 card in hand. They binned both the cards off here. We get to see the Delver of Secrets flip. Please don't be a removal spell. It did not flip. Could be a Solitude. Seems unlikely if they've got all these other spells in. Okay, so this is an expressive iteration trying to find an answer for our combo. So they binned off one card with a Channeler. They binned off a second card. Okay. They're casting their Grixis coloured spell because of Painted Servant. Scalding Tarn has entered the exile zone. Another Wasteland could have potentially done it for them. Sure, we'll take the damage here. Our opponent could have some sort of like sudden edict effect. So we want to keep our guy back rather than soaking up 3 damage there. They're not going to be able to hit us for 14 this turn. Emry, Lurker of the Loch. I think we play out this Emry. Just in case something goes wrong, I would like to have the Emry in play. We're going to Grindstone them in their upkeep. If they have a removal for this, we can then get it back with the Emry next turn. They have conceded from the game. Alrighty, so Jeskai Delver Initiative. Alrighty then. What do we want to do about that? Now, they're going to have some amount of meltdowny type stuff going on. Cap Cannoneer gets in under their stuff quite nicely. Saga Lantern's going to be pretty good against their Murktide Regent type stuff. Pithing Needle on Wasteland is certainly something that I think we probably need here. I don't think this is a Lion's Eye Diamond game. I don't know if this is... It's annoying that we have to keep in our Force of Wills and Force of Negations to stop Meltdown. That is annoying to me. But we don't really have a choice. I don't think Haywire Mite is going to have a lot of stuff to do here. Spellbomb is possibly okay. Our blue spells and things are all good. Probably trim on a Grindstone. We still need 3 more slots if we want these cards in our deck. So we're just going to try and play the 8 cast game. I think that's probably okay. So we trim out 2 of the Grindstones. We've got 1 more card to find. I like to board out Mox Opal in these situations because it gets just caught up by the Meltdown so easily. That does make some of our things a little bit weaker though, so maybe we're supposed to keep a Mox Opal and get rid of the Thought Monster. We need action spell. So we're going to go like this. I don't like having to have all these forces in, but that's the world that Meltdown has created. This is our opening hand. We can Pithing Needle a Wasteland and get a redraw, and we're on the draw, so basically going to get to see 2 more draws. And we're going to have, or we can play these out. I think this is the very low end of a keep for me. This is probably one of the worst hands we've seen all league, to be honest. Delver of Secrets, sure. There's a Saga, not a bad one to find. So we can play this one out. Play out this Pithing Needle. Is this something they fight over? I doubt it. Let's get this Wasteland down. We can play out the Bauble now, because we can always crack it if we need to draw a card, depending on what happens. This just gives us the most information. It's one less thing to come in and trigger a Kappa, but we're nowhere near that sort of thing right now. So it's better just to have it in play in case you want information or whatever. So they got a Ponder, and they're casting that Ponder, I imagine. There's the Ponder. This isn't worth Force of Negationing. This is to stop a Meltdown. So next turn we can cast Painter, and then the turn after we can cast Thoughtcast. If they deal with the Painter, we can try and Urza Saga them out of the game. Now our opponent is definitely going to be putting some serious pressure on us. Alright, a Plateau. And a Dragon's Rage Channeler, sure. Off to a pretty good start here. We're not going to crack this Bauble because we kind of need it for the affinity mana. Okay. We're going to play out our Painter. We have all these blue cards in hand already. We don't want to help our opponent out. They have a Fury potentially as well. We want him black. The Force of Negation only protects on their turn anyway. So they can play around that quite easily by using the removal spells in our turn. A Lightning Bolt targeting our Painter's Servant. Is that something we have to protect? I think it probably is. Let's let them get their Scry first. A Surveil. A Murktide Regent. Okay. I'm going to cast this, and I'm going to pitch probably the Metallic Rebuke here. It's close, but I think the Metallic Rebuke is going to be... So our opponent should have done that on our turn. They're trying to fuel their Dragon's Rage Channeler, but they need to really play around the Force of Negation if they want to keep this off the board. So we've got an answer for 1 more removal spell. They didn't have a Daze for that, which is nice. They would have floated a mana and popped the Daze if they had it. Surgical Extraction, targeting Force of Negation. Why is that in their deck is a really important question to me right now. Well, I understand why the Surgical Extraction is in their deck, to be honest. They're because we have Emry and stuff. But I don't understand why they're Surgical Extracting our Force of Negation. Like, it does hit this turn, which is unfortunate. But that seems a weird one to try and hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So next turn we can cast Thoughtcast. They get to see our whole deck and see how we've sideboarded. This could just be setting us up for getting Meltdown next turn. But I think we have to play the... Like, they've got a lot of pressure in play, so we can't really mess around. An Urza Saga, sure. So if we play an Urza Saga game, how is that going to work for us? We're still going to be losing to the same things. So I think we're just going to be casting this. Oh, I've tapped that wrong, haven't I? I could have been able to do both there if I'd have tapped the other Urza Saga. Instantly knew the mistake as soon as I made it. So we'll play out this Mox. And we will take a gander with what our opponent's got on top of their library. A Wear Tear. That's a pretty annoying one. Yeah, I'm annoyed at that stupid play there. I should have tapped the... As soon as I clicked it, I knew I'd made a mistake there. That's probably going to cost us the game. No, it might not cost us the game, but it certainly has the possibility of costing us the game. Oops, we take 6, so we get a 5, and they have the Wear Tear. That beats us unless we draw a way of dealing with that. So if we make a construct now, so we can gain 2 life, that makes it so we don't die to this, but they have the Wear Tear. I think we activate this for mana. This is where they should do the Wear Tear, to be honest. Let's see if they'll make a mistake and try and Wear Tear this before damage. Doesn't look like they're going to. Maybe they make a mistake and Wear Tear at end of turn. Doesn't look like they're going to. We'll fire this off now, and our opponent will kill our opponent's 7. Alrighty. Wear Tear is less worrying to me than the Meltdown. Now, they might have both, but... So the question is, do we want to try and go harder in the combo or stick with our plan of just trying to outdraw our opponent with lots of resources here? Now the only issue is if they start getting all their Delvers and Channelers to flip, that's a real issue for us. We can drop a Plague Engineer as early as turn 2 and shred all their little guys by naming Human, which is something I'm not opposed to doing. But I have to work out what our deck looks like if we're doing that. We could just try and be on the play. Not sure about this Aether Spellbomb. It does buy us a turn, potentially, against the Murktide, though. Right, we can dismember their guys, but I'm not a massive fan of doing that. Interesting. How good are these Kappa Cannoneers? Maybe the Kappa Cannoneers are too slow and we need to be going into the combo. The Kappa Cannoneers is such a house against them. Maybe it's the Thought Monitors that go. And is it just more combo pieces? Probably, isn't it? Alright, let's go like this. This hand looks good. We'll keep this. This is for the trophy. So, 1, 2. So we're going to cast Thoughtcast on turn 1. This does take our shields down for Force of Negation, potentially. But Force of Negation is less important on the turn 1. Alright. I think, looking at our hand here, we're going to Bauble our opponent. See what they got. A Delver of Secrets. So they're going to have a threat. And we drew another Bauble. Sure. I assume we're just seeing the Delver here. They just want to get a clock going. Understandable. They haven't shown us any Baubles of their own yet. Right, this is our turn. Ancient Tomb. Now this obviously comes with a very real cost attached to it. But we can hardcast Force of Negation and get a redraw from a Bauble. What are they drawing this turn? Islands. So Delver's not flipping. That's good to know. I think we just hold up the Force of Negation here rather than deploying the Painter. We might just be able to do all of our stuff in one turn. This Force of Negation is a lot worse than a Force of Will right now, which is annoying, but such is the nature of life sometimes. Right, so we've got a Lotus Petal. That's a good one. That means we have the mana to play and activate our combo if we draw the Grindstone. We're going to play this island we know about. They are. Another Delver of Secrets. Sure. We're going to take 1 damage. That's fine. So we have to worry about Pyroblast this turn as a thing that our opponent can do, as well as Lightning Bolt. Alrighty then. That's certainly a good one. Do we play our Ancient Tomb now or not? I guess it gives us the option of Otawara-ing, if that's a thing we need to do. We can play out our Lotus Petal here. So we can play out our Grindstone this turn. And we can hold up Hardcast Force of Negation playing around days. Or Otawara, if that's the thing we need to do. Are these flipping? Oh, a miss. Okay. The magic gods are on our side today. We want our opponent to tap out, ideally. A Wasteland. Okay. What are they doing here? This is an expressive iteration. It's not going to be very good, because they've already played their land for turn. A Meltdown. This is some amount of the marbles right now. Okay, the meltdown didn't work. That suggests to me that our opponent does not have a force of will, because I would snap that off every time because it destroys our entire board. Wastelanding our Ancient Tomb. That's actually fine because we have enough mana here. The only thing that undoes us a little bit is a Daze, but we could draw a Petal for that, or we just draw another Ancient Tomb. Painted Servant. We will name green, I guess. And I suppose we're just milling them out while they're tapped out. Yay! Trophied! Nice. So, obviously, we trophied with a deck, which means it's probably pretty good. Also, like, we had a lot of good games here, right? We didn't just steamroller everyone. We 2-1'd every single game. So, that sort of shows that this isn't just like a really crazy OP deck or anything like that. It is just a deck that is very good. And we had a lot of real magic, which is what I liked about this deck. We didn't just go, do we win, do we not win? So that was quite nice. The deck feels like the best version of 8-cast you can play right now by an enormous margin. Like, Sai is really slow and bad these days, in my opinion. Whereas what we're doing here just wins the game. And because we've got these Painted Servants and Grindstones, it speeds up our Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor shenanigans. So that's pretty good. The Forging of the Anchor I thought was very nice, actually. And splitting between the Thought Monitors and Forging the Anchors was decent. I think if you go 4 of either one of them, then you're going to have trouble sometimes because that's less things for the Forging the Anchor to hit. And having loads of Thought Monitors, sometimes they get stranded in your hand. So I think 2 and 2 is actually the ideal split. I'm not just saying that because we did really well, but I think the theory holds out there, and in terms of how we played out our games, it held out quite nicely. Sideboard-wise, we never really got to use the Engineers or the Dismembers, but everything else got a little turn in the spotlight. I think the sideboard was pretty robust. I'd have to play a few more leagues before I could work out if there's any tweaks that need going. The Haywire Mite seems okay, but depending on what you're trying to blow up with it is kind of the issue. So against Null Rods and things, the Haywire Mite is obviously bad because it's an artifact itself. You can't get to blow up the Null Rod. So I'm not necessarily 100% sure that we want the Haywire Mite. Also, if it's something like a Khan in play as well, then you can't activate the Haywire Mite to blow things up. So maybe there's a different option there. But I do like the idea of bringing in more copies of things that you want to get with your Urza Saga anyway. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this deck other than it was obviously very good and won us loads of games. We sometimes got some hands that the mana was needing us to sort of really hit the next step, and we did get there. But there could have been situations where the variance goes the other way and we don't. But again, you see many cards with this deck. I think we didn't have to play against Chalice on 0, which obviously shuts down a big core part of our engine. Much like when 8-cast first came out and it was smashing everything, it was really good. And then people learned to play against it and it got worse. I think because it's gone away, people are sort of sleeping on it a bit. Whereas now this deck is obviously very good. So maybe people will pick up a bit more hate for it, which means it will go down in quality. But this is definitely better than playing regular 8-cast. As I said in my 8-cast video the other day, even though I hadn't played this version of Painter, I knew that the other 8-cast build just wasn't good enough and I wanted the tools from here. Especially, I think Forging the Anchor was actually really good as well. Also, I like playing decks. I like playing Saga decks with Pithing Needle. Some people skimp on the Pithing Needle, and I think that's wrong. Now, it doesn't always come up, but I just think it's such a flexible and potent tool that I don't like leaving home without it. Also, I think you could play some other spell bombs here if you wanted, like the Pyrite Spellbomb because of the Mox Opal, Lotus Petal that we've spoken about, but whether or not that's good enough is the issue. Like Pyrite Spellbomb, it can kill opposition agent, but Aether Spellbomb can bounce opposition. Obviously, they can replay it, so that's why the Pyrite Spellbomb is better. But if, as a singleton, if you're fetching the Pyrite Spellbomb, then you've already kind of got past the stage where the opposition agent is causing you trouble. And you can't Pyrite Spellbomb a Collector Roof either, so I think it probably makes sense not to have it. But I just wonder if there's some other ones, because I know they've revisited the cycle a few times. I don't remember what they are. I suspect none of them are probably good enough, but I think you can play multiple colours in this deck quite happily. And if the initiative goes away, like it might do with bans, you might be able to sub out this island in favour of another Spire of Industry to help you lean into another splash from the sideboard. Alright, I think we are just about done talking about this deck. It looks great. I expect to see a lot more of it. I know my friend Lightwalker from the Painter Servant Discord, he's 5-0'd with this deck, I think twice or maybe 3 times. I know Phil, aka Thraben U, he's 5-0'd with this deck, and it did really well at the SCG event. I think this deck is a genuine big competitor in the meta now, and you should really look out for it in leagues. Now, we've just had a new set come out, which I didn't even know had come out until I started playing this league. I didn't know it was online yet. So that's probably going to change things up. So we're going to have a sort of volatile little while we see how that sits, as well as potential bans coming in. So what's the future of this deck? I don't know. If the meta shifts, I think the core engine of what this deck does is really powerful. But if the really scary things like Initiative and Delver get taken down a peg, then this rises up to possibly one of the top decks, which means that people are going to gun for it. And the thing about this deck is, if you want to beat it, you can beat it, because it relies on like loads of artifacts and stuff like this. So Chalices for 0, Meltdowns, Null Rods, Collector Roofs. There's loads of things you can do to beat this deck. So I don't think this deck will ever be a problem, but it's one of those ones where if you find the right spot, it's going to be very good. But at the moment, it's very much the right spot because the Initiative has warped the meta so much. All right. If you're still here, I hope that you smash that like button, and I also hope that you subscribe to my channel, because that is what I really need right now, subscribers. If I can get to 1,000 subscribers, I can get monetized, which means I can play more weird and wonderful decks, because I don't have to worry about losing too much money on play points if I'm playing some real fruity brews. Also, comments. I want to hear what you like about my channel, what you don't like about my channel, what you want to see played. All right, I think we're done here, so thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.